The Mishnah states if one put out his processed straw, a whole straw, into the public domain to be converted into manure, and another person is damaged by them, the owner of the straw is liable to pay for his damage. And whoever is the first to take the straw acquires it. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says all those who create hazards in the public domain and cause damage are liable to pay, and whoever is the first to take the hazardous objects acquires them. So we can see that the opinion of the Mishnah is according to Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, it would seem. Fine. Then we discussed a discussion with Rabbi Yehuda, and basically we see that it seems that Rav Yehuda is in disagreement with the Brisa and the Mishnah, because what does he say? Rabbi Yehuda says, in a season where manure is put out, a person may put his manure matter out into the public domain, and he may heap it there for an entire 30 days, so that it'll be well crushed by the feet of the people and animals passing by it. For on this, condition, Joshua gave the Israelites possession of the land. So in other words, since Rav Yehuda allows somebody to leave manure matter in the public domain, it seems that he wouldn't hold the owner liable at all if it causes damage. That's different to Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel's case. So the thing of it is, we want to know that, in fact, is this the case? Why? Because if you just remember from last week, Rabbi Yehuda agrees that if one caused damage by putting manure out in the public domain, he pays for what he damaged. We've learned that already. Okay, so it would seem that this Mishnah by Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is of the opinion of Rav Yehuda. So how can you have two different contrasting opinions? Because what he's saying is, within the land of Eretz Israel, Joshua gave certain laws to the Israelites. So it would seem that he gave permission to do so. And since he gave permission to do so for 30 days, in that particular case, for 30 days, he wouldn't hold the person liable. But it's saying, hang on, there's a disagreement here. What's the disagreement? Is that we find another Mishnah where Rabbi Yehuda agrees and we just learned this, guys, in the last Mishnah. If he put manure out in the public domain, he pays for what he damaged. So, in other words, although you're allowed to put it out in the public domain, you're liable if it causes damage. So that's generally what we learned in the principle of 6a, where it says if you open up your septic tank and you allow, the liquid manure to flow with, and somebody slipped and landed up having their bones in traction, you'd be liable to pay. So even though during the rainy season it would be washed away, and you have permission, and only in that season, to clear out your sewage. Why? Some in Israel, there's no rain, the stench would build up. The land is dry and arid. It's not the conducive season to open up your septic tank. But even then, Rabbi Cohen uses the example of a Egoli gas that's doing road works, and they damage your car. They have municipal permission to be there, but not permission given to damage your car. So there can be signs saying that they're doing roadworks, but how does that allow them to damage your car? It doesn't. Okay, so there's a difference between permission and the damage that it causes. For sure, if it's not the season, you're liable. There's no question. So we learned in the Mishnah that we're saying that maybe it's a case where there is a bit of a question, because if you remember the case of Chanukah, when we learned that Mishnah before, one is not liable to pay for damages of a Chanukah lamp that's left out in the street. So in other words, that Mishnah that we learned is if you're going into a shop. Why am I doing Chazorah, guys? Because we're carrying on from there. I just want to make it fresh in your mind. So what happens, you go in a shop with your donkey, it's overladen with flax, it goes in, it can barely budge, can barely fit through the door, and that thing is an accident waiting to happen. It's flammable. So obviously any lights on side of the shop to help guide your way through, that thing's going to set alight the load that the donkey has, and you shouldn't bring your donkey into a shop. So there you're liable. But in the case of the Chanukah lamp, you're not liable in the public domain. So we would say maybe this is a proof for not liability. Why is it a proof for non-liability? Because in this case, you've got permission. Same as the fact that you've got permission, according to Rabbi Yehuda, according to the laws of Joshua, to do certain things in the land of Israel. One of them is to take out your straw, and you've got 30 days to let animals, obviously with traffic and human beings, crush it to the point where there's also going to be a lot of rain in that season, and it's going to generally go into a state of manure compost. So we're saying originally that if the law gives you permission to do so, then Rav Yehuda, it would seem, might not hold you liable. Whereas in the case of dung, it would seem that you might be liable. So, right, because you got permission of the court. So the Mishnah says, no, it doesn't mean that you've got permission of the court and that allows you to do damage in the public domain. What's the difference of this case of Chanukah? It's a mitzvah to publicize the mitzvah, and therefore people are aware it's the season to do so. Everybody is doing it and putting their lights in the public domain. And in that particular case, the fact that it's a mitzvah and the law allows for that mitzvah gives it an extra level of indemnity. Fine. So the Gemara teaches in the Brisa, in the case of Chanukah lamp, is not liable because it's placed there with permission of the court and was granted for the sake of a mitzvah. Okay, so the Gemara has defended its answer that Rav Yehuda holds one liable even in the case of a permissible act. Right. So what are we doing? Because you might say, guys, this seems confusing. First he says you're not liable, then he says you're liable, then he says you're not liable. So the reality is we're saying, hang on. It seems that Rav Yehuda had a dissenting opinion from Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, and we're finding out is that's the case. So what the Gemara tries to do every session is it tries to say, listen, let's look at a history of Rav Yehuda. And let's just see in similar cases if he says that one Kevin is liable or one is not liable. And then it gives you a chance to refute that particular argument. So it is going to sway backwards and forwards because what are we doing now? We are gathering evidence. That's exactly what this process of the Gemara is about. It's not that it can't make up its mind. It's we're seeing different opinions and trying to get some level of consistency. So come here the following brisa. With regard to all the sages who said, you have permission to create hazards in the public domain, the law is if they cause damage, they are liable to pay. Okay, but Rav Yehuda rules that they are not liable to pay. In this brisa, okay, so then Rav Yehuda says you're not liable to pay because it's a permitted act by the law. So what we found before is it seems to be refuted that it was only in the case of a mitzvah. Because although Rav Yehuda is saying that we publicize the mitzvah and that's the permission according to the law, it doesn't refute the fact that if it's the law's granting you permission to leave your manure there for 30 days, that you would be liable according to Rav Yehuda, which doesn't agree with the Mishnah of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. So now we've got what you call proof. So now there's no question. Rav Yehuda rules they are not liable to pay, so because it's an act permitted by law. So now we can see without a shadow of the doubt that the Mishnah is saying one thing. You have Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel on the one side that says you might have permission to put it in the public domain, generally things, but if you put it in the public domain, you're liable for the damage it causes. Here, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel is saying something slightly different. What is he saying? Is that you don't have permission to be there. In other words, what did he say? All those who create hazards in the public domain and cause damage are liable to pay, and whoever is the first to take the hazardous objects acquires them. What does this mean? Is that if he declares the objects ownerless, it's a penalty because you've got no permission to let your stuff rot out in the public just for your benefit to let it deteriorate. Can you see that, Gav? Okay, so Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel is a little bit different to the sages. Why? The sages say, like Rav Yehuda, you have permission to be there, but if it causes damage, you're liable. But you still have permission to be there. Like, municipal permission. But it doesn't allow you to get away with damage. Now, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel is saying, listen, it's worse than that. If you take your objects there to cause damage, we now enforce a penalty. What's that penalty Kevin? What is the penalty we enforce?
I don't know. For the no, I don't know.
Okay, so the penalty we enforce is as follows. You've got something of value to you. You put it in the public domain in order to improve. Why do we say it's an improvement? Because the straw at the moment you can't render for anything productive. It's not really nutritious for the animal, so you want it to deteriorate to provide your plantations with high quality compost and also animal fodder, but it needs a certain amount of chemical breakdown, biochemical breakdown. So therefore, um, you don't want to relinquish ownership. You're putting it in the public domain for a purpose. Now, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is trying to discourage this. Why? Can you imagine if everybody does it? Now, Gavin, this is a little bit different to your septic tanks for one reason, right? What's the difference? Is how do you keep for 7 years your poop and all sorts of, you've got a family of, like, say you're a Haredi family, you've got 10 kids, right? You've got you, your wife, your uncles, your cousins, and everybody stays. How big do you think a septic tank could go before you have to unravel it? And after 6 months, it's bursting at the seams. You don't want a tragedy here. It's a terrible way to die. Um, so, therefore, after 6 months, like, how much space do you have? You have to let out your septic tank. It's not your fault. But this is something that you don't have to do it. You really don't, Gavin. You could buy the compost. You could put it in your own place and let your cows do their treadmill routine and give them a little bit of exercise. You don't have to create a hazard. The septic tank is something different. So that's why Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel is really irked about this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's not like a septic tank where you've got no choice. After 6 months, when the rainy season, I mean, it's been building up there. Can you imagine? There's no modern plumbing, there's no toilets. You've got to let the stuff flow at a certain point. So, that being the case, this is a bit of a different case. He said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. You stick your stuff out there and it's not essential, it's going to be ownerless. It starts to accrue value now that it's becoming compost. I'm going to let whoever takes it first take it. So that penalty, Kevin, is relinquishing ownership.
Ah, okay, yes, yeah.
You see, so there's two penalties. The penalty is if you damage, it pays. And if it doesn't damage, you've relinquished ownership. Now, the person that's hupping it, if he sticks it to another place in the public domain, or you see he's making an act of acquisition, now he's responsible. Okay? Fine. Or he's taking it away. But either way, you lose the value because Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel didn't want to encourage this practice. Rav Yehuda is like the view of the sages. He said, no, this case with the compost is very similar to the septic tanks. You can do it. You've got 30 days to do it. And therefore, we won't hold you liable. That would be the seeming first opinion. Okay. And then we say, well, maybe it's a case where you are liable, like the rabbis would say in the case of the septic tank. We're saying, no, it's not the case. And we're saying, well, maybe Hanukkah. Let's look at Hanukkah. It says you're not liable. Okay, so we see he's not liable. And we're saying, well, maybe you're not liable, not because it's a case of law, but because it's a mitzvah. So you're saying then maybe you are liable. Then it's saying, no, it's not just because it's a mitzvah. It's because it's put down by law that you can do it. Not just because it's a mitzvah. In this case, he's saying that you're not liable. Why? Because it brings the following brisa with all those that have, who the sages have said, have permission to create hazards in the public domain. The law is if they cause damage, they are liable to pay. But Rabbi Yehuda rules that they are not liable to pay. Guys, we did this in the sixth stuff. Do you remember? Please tell me you remember. Gav?
If you refresh it, we'll remember. But I can't.
Yeah.
I'm refreshing it now.
None of us can remember that type of stuff. We're not good with names. Not good with sources. Sorry.
Okay, now do you have some sort of familiar remembrance of a septic tank, and you have permission to do that? You do remember that, just roughly the story, roughly.
I don't remember at all.
Okay,
and not from the. I don't
listen. Maybe the subject matter was a repulsive and put you off, and you had a mental block because of the trauma. There's no issue with that. All right, so let's go on. So we're saying there's no doubt that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't agree with the sages that you liable. So therefore, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, that's even more stringent than the sages, where you lose ownership, they certainly diametrically opposed an opinion. So what? So Kevin has a question. What's your question?
Yeah, well, a comment. Well, in Israel, I don't know if you guys have ever been here for Hanukkah. People put their Hanukkahs in the public domain in a glass casing. It's encased. So maybe I don't know if they did it in biblical times or the times of Gomorrah. Maybe had they done it that way, then it would have they would have avoided any mishaps or any liability.
I think it's a good point. That's a good case in point. No pun intended. So. So, Kevin, yeah, I think it's become easier now because, you've got materials that are non-flammable, you've got transparent materials. I don't know when glass came about, but I think you're absolutely correct. It's obviously drama waiting to happen. So, just to get back to the Gemara quickly to cover a bit of ground. So the Gemara suggests a way that maybe that they could have a bit of compatibility. Okay? So Rav Nachman says the Mishnah refers to a time of year when it's not the season for putting out manure into the street, and is thus consistent with the rule of Rav Yehuda, which applies only during the season. So Arthur, what it's trying to say is here, in the season where manure is put out, right, that you permitted that when you can do that, you permitted and you're not liable for resulting damage. But when it's not the season and the act is forbidden, you are liable for the damage. Okay? So therefore, if our Mishnah rules that is liable, it speaks only of those times that are not in the season. It's consistent with Rabbi Yehuda's view. Now, this is not the general explanation of Rav Yehuda. Just remember, Gavin, this is the explanation of Rav Nachman's reconciliation of Rav Yehuda to this Mishnah. Can you see? Not the general opinion. So he's saying maybe we can find some middle ground. Rav Ashi is also going to try and have middle ground. He offers a different solution. And his solution is, look, at the end of the day, Kevin mentioned this point the other day, which was quite sharp, is that we learned in the Mishnah his processed straw or his whole straw. So how does this relate to what Kevin said? Because the Mishnah refers to straw, in which case even Rabbi Yehuda would agree that the owner is liable because it is slippery and likely to cause damage. Rav Yehuda permit only applies to manure, which is less likely to cause damage. So what we're saying is here is that once it's decomposed, it might be slushy, but it's not slippery. So when it's slippery like a banana peel, in other words, it hasn't decomposed, in that particular case, you're liable. At the point at which it's decomposed and it's not slippery and it's slushy, you're not likely to get hurt. And in that case, you're not liable. So that's Rav Ashi's opinion. And Kevin asked the other day a good question. What did he ask? He said, well, does it matter about the nature or consistency of the material, in terms of a hazard? Like he was saying, like, can't you see the hazard? And what happens if it's not a dangerous hazard in particular? And it's like perfectly viewing, and it's not hazardous to slip on. Remember, we talk about the water and everything else. So Kevin brought up a good point, and you're in good company with Rav Ashi. Right. But the general opinion without the resolution by Rav Nachman and Rav Ashi is that Rabbi Yehuda said that you're not liable for payment because you got permission of the law. The rabbis say you have permission to do it during the raining season, but if it causes damage, you are liable. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says in that particular case, we understand with the septic tanks, because what are you going to do? Wait for years to open it up? It's not going to happen. I'm paraphrasing, guys, paraphrasing. I don't want to get to Shemaim and have a problem. So what happens now is Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says something else. He says this isn't like the septic tanks. He's implying, he's saying this, you don't have to put your manure in the public domain. So if you put it there because it becomes more valuable as a result of the decomposition and animal feet and rains, etc., we're going to punish you by making you not only liable for the damage, but now it's ownerless. So now anybody can take it. So now what have you gained? So he's more even stringent than the sages. Fine. Now that we've got that, we're going to go on to the next portion. How much? We've got some more time. Don't worry, guys. I've got 10 minutes or 12 minutes, and then Kevin will take over. Guys, are you pleased with the summary and some additions I've added?
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so.
Has it added anything to you?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Okay. All right. The Mishnah states in regard to straw that has been left in the public domain, we're on 30b1. Whoever is first to take the straw acquires it. So now the Mishnah teaches here that the rabbis, and it's seeming to say it's not just Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, but the rabbis themselves, penalize one who puts hazardous materials in the public domain by allowing anyone to take them. Amoraim debate the extent of this penalty. So now we're seeing something a little bit different. It seems that Rabbi Yehuda is the only lone opinion, it would seem. That means that you could stick your materials there for 30 days. Maybe there's some, I'm sure there's sages that agree with him, but there are a lot of sages, Kevin, that agree with Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel that says you can't do this. You can't put it in the public domain. Why? Because it says, here there's an Amorite debate about the extent that the rabbis would punish. So when it says the extent, it's not a question of if they punish or if not. That means they're punishing you. It depends how badly. And therefore, it's not allowed.
It's going to be inevitable damage.
Correct.
Probably.
Exactly. So Rav said, anyone can acquire both the materials themselves and the improvements. I'm just going to explain this. But Rav Zairi says one can acquire the improvements, but not the materials itself. So what are we saying here? You've got straw worth maybe, you've done quite a bit of straw. You've got straw worth about 1,200 Rand. Okay, let's use Rand. 1,200 Rand isn't a lot in dollars, so it's not unrealistic. 1,200 Rand's worth of straw. Now, when it makes its improvements, Gavin, it's going to be worth about 7 or 8 grand. 7 or 8,000 Rand. But at the moment, the amount of bundles of straw is about 1,200 Rand. So, Rav is saying, right, because you stuck it in the public domain, now it's improved and it's come to the point that it's worth about 7,000 Rand. Kev, I need to follow here. I know you're tired. We need about 10 minutes. That's all I need from you.
That's fine.
So Rav is saying, listen, it was worth like 1,200 Rand. It's now worth like 7 grand, right?
Yeah.
Let's just use 6 grand because it's it's worth 6 grand. So therefore, now it's valuable. And you're about to chop it, and it's the 30th day, and on the 28th day, some sneaky little fellow comes, hobbitses, and comes and takes it from you, right? So now that this person took it from you, you're really upset, Gavin. Why? Because now your manure's gone from 1,200 Rand to 6 grand's worth of value that you lost. So Rav said, tough. It's tough. You lose everything because you shouldn't have had it in the public domain. So he's quite hard, right? Rav Zadri said, it's not tough. What happens then? The guy must pay you for the 1,200 Rand for what your straw was worth before it decomposed, but he can keep this new compost manure, so he's gained a profit of 4,200 Rand. Sorry,
it's a loss. He's made a loss.
No. What I'm saying is as follows.
Saying the guy takes it and it's gained value.
Let me explain to you what I'm saying. I got manure. Okay, I've got straw. I don't have manure. I've got 1,200 Rands worth of straw in the public domain.
Okay.
I've got 30 days. Now, come 30 days, it's looking like it's worth about 6 grand. Okay, and I've got 1,200 Rands worth of straw there. But it's now decomposed that if I sold it on the market, it would get at Schaffler's nursery or whatever nursery it is, I'd get about 6 grand for it. So now it's climbed in value by 4,800 Rand. So Kevin, if you come and take it on the 28th day, you know I'm going to come out on the 30th day and look for my thing. 28th day, you're up at the crack of dawn. You know I get up late. You go and you steal this thing. You haven't stolen it because Rav said you can take it. Kev, are you awake? Rav said you can take it, and then you owe me nothing for it. You don't even owe me the 1,200 Rand for what the straw was worth. Why? Because Rav said that's tough. You want to create a public hazard. You're not entitled to anything. You lose the principle even. Rav Zairi says you don't lose the principle. You can't just take it from me. Just let me finish a sec. You can't just take it from me and let me lose the principle. You have to pay me back the 1,200 Rand for what the straw is worth. But you can take the manure on a first come, first served basis and make yourself 4,800 Rands worth of profit that I'm not entitled to because I shouldn't have stuck that hazard in the public domain. So what's Rav and Rav Ziri arguing about? Very simple. Rav's saying much more harshly, you shouldn't have created a hazard in the public domain, so you not only lose the profitability of the increase of value from the deterioration from straw to manure, in other words, the gain, the profit gain, but you lose the principal amount as well, what the straw was worth. Rav Zairi says that's not fair. It's bad enough you lose all that extra profitability of what you gained waiting for 30 days for this improvement to take place. But you don't have to lose the principal, and he must pay you what the straw is worth. Rav said you've created a hazard. It's tough. It's tough luck. You've lost ownership of everything. Do you see the difference, guys?
Yeah, I just want to ask you something. Sorry, I did miss one thing, just one thing. The guy that's taking the manure.
Yes.
Did he have an act? Did he hurt himself in the manure? Is that why he's taking it?
They're two separate. Good question. Great question. Let me answer it. They're two separate issues. One is a liability for hazard. The other one is saying because you created a hazard in the public domain, the entire public has a right to kidnap your product, because the only reason you left it as a hazard in the public domain is you wanted an improvement to take place. Now you could possibly injure somebody. So Rav is saying as a result, you lose even your straw, because whoever it's now ownerless. You've lost entitlement to ownership of that straw, and therefore anybody, the first person can come and take it, he can take it. That'll teach you to put a hazard in the public domain. So even if it hasn't injured anybody, you're entitled to take it. Okay.
Thank you.
Fine.
I want to ask, and then one other thing as well is this is a massive deterrent. I would have thought that after this, with this type of scenario, no one would put stuff in the public domain.
Well, I think it was a massive deterrent, and I think that was the point. That's exactly the point. I think maybe after this, it curtailed it maybe to a couple of stupid individuals, which you can't get rid of in any society. But most people are caught to wake up. So you're right. Just, guys, I want you to understand the principle before Kevin teaches us now, is that Rav is saying that you lose the capital amount and any of the benefits accrued by the 30 days of improvement and financial gain from the straw to the manure. So you lose the straw and the proceeds you would have earned from the manure. Rav Zairi says, listen, it's only the improvement is ownerless, meaning the improvement it's made, if it's now worth 6,000 Rand, but the straw was worth 1,200, you give the guy the 1,200 for the straw, but you can kidnap the manure. Very straightforward. Very straightforward. All right, guys, you understand?
Yeah, clear. Thank you.
Good. Kevin, teach us.
Okay. It is a positive commandment to fear Hashem. And it says it says you shall fear Hashem your God in Devarim. The way toward reverent fear of him is like the way to love for him, as outlined above. When a sin comes to one's hand, he is duty bound to arouse his spirit that the Holy One, blessed be he, watches every action of human beings. This is among the commandments that a person is obligated to observe every occasion constantly. And reverent fear includes the requirement not to pronounce the name of Hashem in vain, purposely. Okay, and that I think we know. Next one, it's a positive commandment to sanctify Hashem openly. And in Vayikra it says, and I will be hallowed among the children of Israel. This we must do by submitting our life to death if necessary, and with all our might, we make his faith widely known. Be his name blessed. Thus, if others wish to compel someone to turn away from our faith, he should not want at all He should not want at all to listen, but should submit his life to execution on account of this. Neither should he be misled. Should he mislead the one compelling him to make him think that he has turned heretic, although in his heart he believes in him, so that he should not give the one forcing him to transgress any grounds to think that he has denied the blessed God. If one applying the force means to make him change his faith, and it is in public, which means before 10 Jews, then even over any other transgression, and even if it is not at the time of religious persecution, he is to be killed sooner than transgress. If it is at a time of religious persecution, heaven forbid, then even in private he is to accept death sooner than transgress. If, however, idol worship, consanguineous sexual relations or adultery or bloodshed is involved, as the act he is forced to commit, then even if it is in private and not at a time of religious persecution, and even if the one forcing him is intent only on his own pleasure and not on making him give up his faith, he is to accept death sooner than transgress. And if it is in public, he thus sanctifies the divine name openly, and there is no deed higher than that. If someone transgresses this and does not sanctify the divine name in a situation where he is duty bound to hallow it, he has disobeyed a positive commandment and transgressed a negative one, not to desecrate the divine name of heaven, as Scripture states, and you shall not profane my holy name. This is from Vayikra. So we've heard this before about Avodah Zarah and all those things, those cardinal sins. People rather give up your life: idol worship, sexual immorality, and what was the other one, Damon? And to
murder.
You're not allowed to do that. You should.
You're not allowed to murder as well.
Oh, murder, yes, murder, yes. You rather die. Rather die, die. And that's so now we're going through these all positive commandments. So, I mean, I don't know, it happened during the Spanish Inquisition and in other times during the Crusades, where Jews were forced to convert to Christianity. Some were able to withstand and died al-Kiddush Hashem, and some unfortunately didn't and succumbed. Or the ones in Spain actually left and went to the New World, and some went to Portugal and the States, and they fled so that they could at least practice their Judaism in peace and quiet, so to speak. So that's what it's talking about, religious persecution. So bottom line is, it goes back to what we did 2 days ago, is Hashem is the only God, that's it. And you don't accept other faiths. I mean, I once had an incident when I was working at Powerhouse before I came to LA. We had this guy, and I tell you, Damon, these oaks, these people have nothing on you and learned Talmud Chachamim L'Havdil. This guy was a lay preacher in the one church. So I said to him, I don't want to hear about JC. So he said to everybody, I told him more than once, and he tried to debate me, but no depth, no substance to this oak. And trust me, I'm far from Talmud Chacham status, but I have a bit of knowledge, as we all do. And he gets everyone to their whole hands, and what does he say? He says, in JC's name, we want to achieve success. I said, so they already lost credibility with me, and I didn't want to, but he said it, you know what I mean? It's at the end of the day, we have to resist this nonsense.
I just want to ask you guys something. I just want to address a point. Gavin and I learned in Sanhedrin 74a this particular prohibition, right? There was a case with Rava, and somebody basically told him that the governor of the city had ordered that a certain man suffer death. And basically, this is a whole discussion where Rava turned around to him and said, how do you know that your blood is redder than his? Perhaps his is redder than yours. So what that basically means is you can't make that's sort of a judgment call, because they basically said, listen, there's a guy in the town and he had to like get rid of him, otherwise the whole town might have ended up getting affected from it. I mean, in any case, guys, if you go to a source of Yoma in 82b, it discusses what happens if you've got an entire town. It says, like, give me one Jew to kill. If you don't, I will kill all of you. So since it's impossible to decide whose blood is the least red, that's the Gemara term. This is according to the Rambam. You can't give anybody over to be butchered and killed. So in other words, everybody, you can't almost volunteer somebody to come up. Where it's a difficult farm is there was a certain cases where there would be somebody of a town that obviously did a particular transgression. And in that case, he was guilty of the transgression, or the town would be wiped out. I need to find out what the halacha is as far as this is concerned, because that is a different matter. You're not finding somebody innocent. You're finding somebody that, in fact, might have created a story that put the entire town in danger. Here we're talking about a case of that there wasn't anything specific. Does that make sense, guys?
And on a similar note, during the Holocaust, the Nazis said to some Jewish people, so they had to have quotas of people to put it in the death camps. And some people had the option of saving their own kids and nominating others. And someone asked a Charlotte to he said, no, you're not allowed to. It's Hashem's will. You're not allowed to save your own son for another Jew. It goes back to his blood's not more valuable. Yours is not more valuable than his. I don't know if you heard that, stories like that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine what they went through. I just don't know what the halacha would be in a town where somebody is guilty and they put the entire town in danger.
Oh, you're talking about, yeah.
So that's,
okay.
That's a different...
okay, sorry, I didn't...
So why is that the only mitzvah? Just one thing, guys, is that you know that it turns around and it says that... you remember that whole line that you shall live by the mitzvahs and not die by them is the implication. It's in Vayikra chapter 18 verse 5. It says, you shall keep my decrees and my laws that a person will do and live by them. I am God. By saying live by them, it implies you don't have to die by them except for the 3 cardinal sins, because those sins irreparably damage your soul. So it's not a point where you've got to break Shabbos to save your life. It's in order to keep another Shabbat, but not things that you sell your soul in order to save your body. That doesn't make sense. So